should I say, welcome to Rauta's one of the first review videos with actual unboxing. That is, this time I actually have a CD here in Spain. This is the very first one, and it's from United States called Pythagoras with Botched Field Surgery debut album. This one is actually CDR, so I'm wondering why. Because the quality of this music is actually good, better than what would justify CD or copy. They usually reek of cheap-ass demo production, whereas this one is actually way better. However, this band from California contacted me recently with their 2022 album, and why I decided to take on top of my review queue is because here in Spain I'm mostly leaning for digital copies. I mean, at least until now. And when I get a physical copy, I simply cannot say no thanks. I'm like, hey, let's do it. And today is the day I get to celebrate more physical copies. I actually got 3 parcels today, so maybe we're getting back to the normal business more or less. Anyway, this one is about Pythagoras, a death metal band that was started a few years ago. Very simple physical copy, as you can see. No real booklet, no lyrics whatsoever, just a band photo. Look at these handsome guys. 5 dudes from California living the dream on the beach or whatever. I really don't know the guys, so there is that. Anyway, this is a band worth mentioning for a couple of reasons. First of all, like I said, the quality is pretty good, and I don't know why this band hasn't yet been signed by a label. Maybe it's intentional by the band, or maybe they just haven't been lucky with finding a label that is interested in traditional, one could say old school, classic death metal. I think it certainly helps that this band has been around a few years and before making full album, especially when it's self-financed one, decided to do a couple of EPs. Because as you know, back in the days, a lot of bands did first a few demos. Actually, some bands spent a lot of years honing their style and figuring out what kind of sound they want and all that stuff before entering the so-called album phase. And when the album phase was there, they already had figured out how to do it, what kind of production, what kind of vocals, etc. We're talking about, especially now this is American bands like Cannibal Corpse, Death, Obituary, and all that stuff. So those days bands were not too hurried to do their first album like, hey, let's form a band, and a few months later, hey, this is our first album is out, and making all the mistakes for the album. This time it has definitely helped this band to hone their style. What strikes me as weird is Pythagoras being a Greek philosopher and mathematician, how hard can it be? From the ancient Greek, it doesn't really sound like a old school death metal name. I mean, botched field surgery definitely does sound like that. But when you have a name that comes from a Greek philosopher, it sounds like, okay, is this some kind of a progressive metal band or progressive death metal at best when it comes to extreme metal? But no, these guys are definitely doing some kind of old-fashioned, old-school, traditional death metal, classic death metal, if you ask me, and they're doing it quite well. I actually want to say they do it well, but there are few minor, I want to emphasize the word minor flaws on this album. But definitely so good that it deserves a proper print run with pro CD, booklet, whatsoever. I think this is actually so old school in style that it would kind of require a proper thank you list. Like back in the days, 80s, 90s, bands actually had thank you list for their partners in crime and tours and gigs and all that stuff. But this is as basic as it comes, so we'll just have to deal with it. What's inside is, that is musically speaking, some 40 plus minutes of music in traditional ways. As you can see on here, Metal Archives as background. This one was released late 2022, so quite fresh from the oven still. And it has 8 tracks. So 8 tracks, 40 minutes. Does it sound very, very back to basics kind of thing? Yes, it does. Meaning these songs are roughly, the kind of a basic length. However, there are a couple of lengthier ones like, the ending track Succubus as 8 minutes and Baby Crusher 7 minutes. That's a badass title, by the way. Should raise some eyebrows. But what matters is that these guys are doing riff-wise and composition-wise, rather basic death metal. And that is not in order to kind of downplay the whole effort here, but more like emphasize the feeling. This is from old school death metal fans for you, other old school death metal fans. The riffs, the production, the vocals, everything here is like, hey, this is as traditional as it gets in a good way. Mind you, this doesn't sound really retro. I mean, there's kind of old school feeling with the very heavy and crushing guitar sound, and well, especially with those down-picked riffs and all that stuff. But they sound like there's bass. There is some kind of a backbone to it, which makes this album sound strong and impactful. There is some melodic part which is more like giving a wing to more melodic death metal. Like, okay, can get it. And there's certain kind of a grooviness which puts this album way more versatile than a lot of those that just want to emulate old school sound without understanding what made those old school albums work. Whether we're talking about Death or Obituary, D-Side, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, whatever, I mean, there's kind of a classic vibe to it, and all those bands back in the days, they had more versatility than just playing one song and then repeating the pattern all over again. And that's exactly what Pythagoras is doing quite nicely. On top of that, the vocals are basic roller vocals, but they're good. I'm not saying they're out of ordinary. Nothing here really is, but as it comes to a new band that is just basically figuring out what to do with their band and all, I would say the work is good here. So if you like old school death metal, that should be given by now, you are most likely to like it at least to a certain degree. Like I said, there are minor flaws which makes my eyebrows go like a little bit like, why is this riffs here? Why is that melody here? Why? I'm, doing that because some of those parts are just like are a little bit misplaced. But they are only a small percentage of the whole album here. So it's mostly actually good. And there are no weird off-road moments, too many. It's more like a seasoning where it gets like I don't know why this, sweet taste is on my well made beef here, but I can deal with it. That's the whole thing here. Anyway, should I got you interested in old school death metal, Pythagoras is right there. I don't know how or where to get this physical format. No information was given to me, but I guess you can use your magnificent Googling skills, or if you want to take a look first, the whole album is streamable via YouTube. So you do your YouTube searching skills and you can listen to the album like I actually did here because my laptop doesn't actually have a CD player. It's right there with the game console and all. But be it as may, I think you should give it a go. Old school death metal, traditional, basic, no gimmicks. That's it. Pythagoras is right here, and let's keep thumbs up for these guys to go even further with the next album, because I'm sure that's already in the making. See you with more reviews coming your way.